Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhattacana Ranjana Dana Bhattacana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Ashtotar to Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Oh, God. Okay. Okay, let's see. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, 1 second. On this 8th day of December 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 13, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness. Text 31, I believe, right? Yes, at the bottom of page 561. Bottom of page 561. Yada bhuta pratag bhavam ekastham anupashyati tata eva chavistaram brahma sampadhyate tada yada bhuta patak bhavam ekastam anupashyati tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadhyate tada yada bhuta patak bhavam ekastam anupashyati tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadhyate tada yada bhuta patak bhavam ekastam anupashyati tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadhyate tada. Go ahead. Yata bhuta patak bhavam ekastam anupashyati tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadhyate tada. Bhakta Chad.
Yada bhuta pratak bhavam
Yada bhuta patak bhavam
ekastam anupashyati
ekastam anupashyati
tata eva cha vistaram
tata eva cha vistaram
brahma sampadhyate tada.
brahma sampadhyate tada. Vanessa? Not yet.
She's not on, but there are other Prabhus.
Okay, she's probably settling back there. I'm sorry?
Dr. Ferdy.
Oh, Ferdy, you there? Go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Yada bhuta, Haribol. Yada bhuta pratak bhavam
Yada bhuta patak bhavam
ekastam anupashyate
ekastam anupashyati
tattva cha vistaram
tata eva cha vistaram
brahma sampadhyate tada.
brahma sampadhyate tada. Okay. Word by word. Yada, when. Bhuta, of living entities. Pratag bhavam, separated identities. Ekastam, situated in one. Anupashyati, one tries to see through authority. Tataha eva, thereafter, cha also, vistaram, the expansion, Brahma, the absolute, sampadhyate, he attains tada at that time. Krishna says to Arjuna, when a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception. Purport. When one can see that the various bodies of living entities arise due to the different desires of the individual soul and do not actually belong to the soul itself, one actually sees. In the material conception of life, we find someone a demigod, someone a human being, a dog, a cat, etc. This is material vision, not actual vision. This material differentiation is due to a material conception of life. After the destruction of the material body, the spirit soul is one. The spirit soul, due to contact with material nature, gets different types of bodies. When one can see this, he attains spiritual vision. Thus, being freed from differentiations like man, animal, big, low, etc., one becomes purified in his consciousness and able to develop Krishna consciousness in his spiritual identity. How he then sees things will be explained in the next verse. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So, this is Krishna is describing the development of spiritual vision when a man or a human being ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere. He attains to the Brahman conception. Now you can see, just by contrast, what we have today. In this United States, which for many years has been known as a melting pot, meaning that people from all over the place migrate here, usually to find a better life, to escape from persecution, whatever reason. And if they come to New York, they see the Statue of Liberty, and they've probably been taught what she's reading there. Give me, you're tired, you're poor, right? And in other words, welcoming all kinds of people. And so you find that the United States is made up of many different races and ethnicities, religions, and all kinds of things. But you also find that there is a lot of discrimination on the basis of the external body. The real, we don't like to think about it so much, and of course in Krishna consciousness, we're not entangled in it so much, but people who identify themselves as Americans, who go through school and learn history, the history of the United States, well, it's pretty much sanitized, but really the two main things that happened in order to settle this country and build it up, prosperous, was genocide of the Native Americans and slavery, So that's all on the basis of, obviously, the external aspect of the human being. There's a color aspect too, language, ethnicity, all kinds of things. And so, and we can see, if you see the history, you read the history of the United States, tremendous amount of suffering was there. The Indians, it was, the Native Americans, they call them Indians because you know why. They went through so much, and even today, they're still on the reservations. It's, oh God. And the black people, the Negroes, just to bring them over here. I mean, you had, the Europeans would go to Africa, and they actually had native Africans who were capturing other Africans and then selling them into slavery for money. And then they would stick them on these boats and pack them in, and many of them would die on the boats. It's impossible. It's hair-raising to think about it. So this is all the result of a gross bodily concept of life. I'm a European, I have a white skin, I speak a certain language, and these are inferior people, obviously, so but they're strong, so we use their labor. It's demonic. So that's an extreme differentiation, but even just in an ordinary way of life, without those extremes, we find people automatically falling into that material or bodily concept of life, and trying to support the body. You have to eat enough, and you have to have housing is a big thing now. People can't afford to get good housing. Healthcare, which also involves the body, completely overpriced, and just very difficult. So all of that keeps one in a state of anxiety and fear. This is why the spiritual world, which we're encouraged throughout the Srila Prabhupada's books to aspire for, it exists, and this is our real home, and this is where we can give up all this anxiety, and that's why it's called Vaikuntha, free of anxiety. Every place in the material world and every species, whether it's the insects, the birds, the fish, the human beings, there's this anxiety. How to find safety, how to find food, how to find sex, and if you find it, how to keep it, and your health. So all of that is based, you can see, on the tenuousness of the physical body. In the beginning of the second canto, I remember when I read it, it stuck in my mind, I think the first purport, the second purport. And Prabhupada talks about how, the body is no more permanent or substantial than the little bubbles in the ocean. The waves come in, there's so many bubbles, and foam. Foam is just a lot of bubbles, And the bubbles, come together for a few moments or something, and then they go apart, and then they explode, and then they don't exist anymore. The whole point is it's very ephemeral, it's very temporary. And these bodies are like that. We may be in them for 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years at maximum in this age. And during that time, we go through so many bodies. Dehinosmin yata dehi komaram yovanang jada, that famous verse. That the soul, which never changes, never born, never dies, doesn't go through these changes, is thinking that he's going through changes because the soul is completely identifying with the physical body, and the mental body, And we all go through those changes. The childhood has a certain childhood mentality and a certain childhood body, And then it grows and changes, and then you're at adolescence, and everything changes, You're getting smarter, you're getting educated a little bit, and you're identifying, with your body, and then sex and all that stuff. So it's and it never ends. The changing never ends. That's what it is about the material world. It's asat. Bhava. Bhava means to become. This is called Bhava Sagara. It's the ocean of becoming. Everything is changing. We try to find things of stability in our life. This is changing. This is my address, and so forth. But eventually, it changes. Just since I've come here, I've had like 4 or 5 different addresses. And this one I've been in for 25 years. But in the 90s, for one reason or another, my friend and I, Gangeya Prabhu, tragically has premature dementia. But we moved several times, and we had to move because the people who owned the building they wanted to build a bunch of condos. So they wanted to wreck the building. Okay, you got the 3 weeks to find another place. Okay. So then Gangeya, bless his heart, he found this place that I'm in. I've been in for so long. We lived there together for 4 years before he went to Tucson. But this point, you're changing. You're always moving. Nothing is steady. So where to find that entity or that reality that isn't changing, that is eternal? That's Brahman. That's Sat. That's the Sat Chit Ananda, and that's who we are. But because we're so minute, and because we have the tendency, we're marginal energy. We're spiritual, but Krishna's marginal energy means that we can become entranced by the material energy, the attraction of it. Even though we're in the spiritual world, we have that tendency. If we turn away from Krishna, we allow ourselves to be attracted by the material energy, then the false ego develops. False ego means a sense of separation from Krishna. And then fear arises as soon as we separate ourselves from Krishna. Just like you find the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, you see. So much of it is, Krishna's cavorting with his friends and relating, wonderfully with his mother and so forth. But then the demons come. There's some demon, right? Putana, Trinavarta, Shakatasura, Bakasura, there's a whole list. There's a wonderful paper. I don't know all the lists. I should know them. Maybe tomorrow. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has gone through all these demons, and he says, listening to the pastimes of Krishna killing these various demons helps us. Each one of them represents a certain bad quality in ourselves that we want to kind of overcome, And so I'll bring my iPad tomorrow. I'll have the list. And just by hearing, how Krishna killed Bakasura. Bakasura, I forget his crookedness or something. Putana is the false guru. And I forget some of the others, but they all represent bad qualities we have to overcome, So so Krishna will kill those qualities in us. If we become Krishna conscious, we will be able to overcome them. They just slide away, and you're not burdened by it anymore. So but why do we need that? Because we rebelled, we turned away from Krishna, we became entranced by the material energy, the dualities. The dualities have been good and bad, heat and cold, pleasure and pain, these things. And so that's the origin of our falling into this material world. There has to be a world where we can exist, and because Krishna is always there, but we can be and we can forget him. This world, the material world, helps us to forget Krishna if we allow our mind and our senses to be entangled in the material energy. So the process of devotional service, as given by Krishna, is Bhagavad Gita, and taught in the Bhagavatam and by all the great sages, is to systematically train ourselves to turn toward Krishna. And to those, how do we turn toward Krishna? Where is he? Because he manifests in certain ways, especially in this age in the form of his holy name. You don't have to go anywhere, right? Krishna's come to you. He sent his emissaries, Srila Prabhupada, and, to teach us this Hare Krishna mantra. It's free. You can have 1 million cards. There's no big effort in getting exposed to it. The effort is, if we're fortunate, we need to develop enough faith to try the chanting. To even say, okay, I'll try. I remember I started 2 rounds a day. I wasn't really under anybody in the temple. But I think on my own, I came up with that. Somebody suggested it, to start out with 2 rounds a day. All right, I can do that, integrate that. I did my yoga, standing on my head, deep breathing, little meditation. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I invented it. Then I was amazed. I read it in the books. I read it in Prabhupada's books. This is an authorized process. Is that you sit and you think, you watch the breathing, and on the in-breath, you're chanting in your mind, visualizing, you can read it also. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And then you hold for like a few seconds. And then you out-breathe, you're controlling the breathing. And the out-breathing, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And this way is very effective meditation. Anyway, so that was my good fortune. And I think also, because by that time, I had a serious case of hepatitis. I think I mentioned I was in the hospital for a month. I thought I might die. To be honest with you, I was ideating, what do they call it? Thinking about suicide, because my life had come down to like this, being in the hospital. I didn't really get too serious about that, but that's how depressed I was. So I come out, and so my parents, bless their heart, they let me move back in, but I said, I got to have some way of regenerating my health. I got to get back to me, So anyway, I thought of this yoga, and I started, doing yoga with Amala Bhakta. He wasn't called Amala Bhakta Swami at that time in New York. And that was my first exposure, seriously, to yoga. And I think it was at that point I read the autobiography of a yogi. Everyone read that book. And it was a path, But I was fortunate in that I had kind of blown out, my material side, and I really didn't have much going on that side at that point, But the spiritual aspect and philosophical inquiry, I was always into that. And also, the yoga was really doing me good, my health, And, importantly, I became a vegetarian. More than a vegetarian, it was raw food, a lot of juices, carrot, and I forget this one company, carrot and celery, and there was something else in there. It was supposed to be really good for you, I'd had that every day. And anyway, we got a job. First I was a taxi driver, local, not in New York. And finally, I got my job in the hospital, which is really, good because I could see, it's in the hospital, birth, old age, disease, and death. You see them all, So anyway, the result was, and then later on I said Krishna really was moving around me around in such a way that I would become attracted to Krishna consciousness. So that's our good fortune. I mean, now we're all fortunate here. We have Krishna's books, the Bhagavad Gita, with the commentary of his pure devotee. We have the temple, we have the deities, we have the holy name, we have the prasadam. And how fortunate we are. It's like, I told this story before, you've heard it 100 times. I go in my morning walk, the first thing I see at the end of the block is the lottery. There's a little bodega, it's always locked, it's closed at 6:30. But they said, oh, play the lottery. And I can't believe it. I mean, it used to be 10 million, 12 million. Now it's like $500 million, I can see that if I didn't have, if I wasn't aware, I would say, well, what are the card $2, $3, I can win $500 million, Anyway, it's crazy. But that's the material world. Always, say, well, look, you haven't tried this yet. Try this, try this, try this. But it's wonderful. I was thinking, trying to remember a verse. I remembered the verse, but I didn't remember the context of the verse. How does it go? Sahivayam no. Evam prasanna Bhagavad. Yeah. Evam prasanna manaso Bhagavad Bhakti Yogataha Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate. Now I don't know if that rings a bell, but it's in a series of verses in the second chapter of the first canto, beginning with Savai Pungsang Parodharma, which is Sutta Goswami's answer to the sage's question of what is the ultimate goal of life? How can the soul really find happiness and peace? Like that. So this is the first verse, very important verse, Prabhupada would often quote. Is that what is that dharma that someone can act that can really bring one full satisfaction and peace, for the soul? So this is the answer. Savai Pungsang Paro Dharma, the supreme dharma for human beings, for persons, Savai Paro Dharma. Yato Bhakti Adhokshaje is that which engenders, which results in devotional service to Adhokshaja. Now this is a very important name of Krishna. It's not a Vrindavan name or anything like that. It's made of three words, Adha, Aksha, and Ja. Now Ja is short for Janma, which means birth, generation. Aksha is the eyes and all the senses. So, Adha Akshaja, what is born, what kind of knowledge is born of use of the senses? That's the thing. This is the ascending process. This is material knowledge. So Krishna's name is Adha Akshaja. He pushes all that knowledge down. He's transcendental to it all. So it's basically the word is a name that means the transcendental Lord. He is transcendental to the reach of our mundane mind and senses. That's what real transcendence means. So it says that supreme dharma is that which engenders and leads to loving devotional service to the transcendent Lord. But it has to have a certain quality to fully satisfy the self. Ahoituki and apratihata. So ahoituki means without any material motive. This word hetu means cause, and in this context it means material cause or material motivation. So that's the one thing, that's a big thing. In other words, there's a whole section of the Vedas where you can go at Karma Kanda section, learn how to worship the demigods, and if you do it just right, you appreciate them with the right sacrifices, then you can go to heaven. I'm in heaven now. And in the West, heaven means I'm home, I'm in the place of happiness, right? No, not in the Vedic culture. That means you're in the temporary place. You may be thousands, millions of years, but it expires. The time expires. So that. So that ahoitiki means not with that kind of motivation, and to fully satisfy the self and pave our way, open our door to the spiritual world, it has to be unceasing, without break. Ahoitiki anaha pratiyata. Yayatma suprasidati. Such a devotional service fully satisfies the soul. The soul becomes very, very blissful, even in this world, and at the end goes back to God. So that's just the first verse in this series. Then he goes on. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But there, it comes to the point of needing to cultivate a taste for hearing about Krishna. Because we're really not suitable to practice the classic meditation and wrestle the mind that way. It's very difficult. You have to go to a lonely place. Where's the lonely place, Anyway, but still we need to get to the point of always thinking of Krishna. So that comes through hearing and chanting, hearing the holy name individually, collectively, hearing about Krishna, hearing the philosophy, and applying it to our lives. And so hearing is the key. So it's not just hearing, but a shushu shol. Maybe you've heard that phrase in varieties. Means ardent hearing, submissive all reception. The mind is submitting, means it's not fighting and going off, wandering here and there and spacing out. So ardent hearing with great face. Shushu shol shadadhanasa vasudeva kata ruchi syan mahat sevaya vipra punya tirtha nishevana. How do you get that ardent hearing desire? From serving the pure devotee. Syan means comes into being. That shushu. Syan mahat sevaya. The mahat is the Mahatma, and sevaya means service. So service to the Mahatma, the pure devotee. Punya Tirtha Nisheva, who is himself a place of pilgrimage. Just like Prabhupada would make places of pilgrimage wherever he went. You know, where that little storefront was a place of pilgrimage when he was there and he cultivated it. You know, even today it is. We own the building now and everything, so you can go there. It's a historical place. So Punya Tirtha Nisheva, by serving the Mahatma and so forth, one gets the taste to hear, ardent taste to hear. And then, if we have that, then the last 5 verses give you the ultimate thing. This is a complete lesson in bhakti, basically, right in the 2nd chapter of the whole Bhagavatam. Because I think the sages understood these Kali Yugites, Prayano, Bhayashak Sabya, Kalavasmi, Manda, Sumanda Madhya, Manda Bhagya, Upadrata. Upadra means, on top of all this other stuff, they don't live very long. They're lazy in the matter of spiritual life. They're misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. So how are you going to, cultivate yoga in that way, bhakti, So they think this Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses long. Now, just to make it clear, so you'll know, and I like to point this out. When I was working on the Bhagavatam with Gopi Puranadana Prabhu and Vidyananda Das Goswami in Miami, we eventually finished the book in 1988, I think it was. And so then it was printed in 18 volumes. But then we heard, after a little while, the devotees somehow communicated with us. We didn't have email at that time, but somehow they wrote us a letter. So where, we counted the number of verses in all the chapters, and there's no way it's 18,000. It's way short. Where's all the other verses? So Gopi Puranadana Prabhu explained to me, it doesn't say shlokas, it says granta. 18,000 grantas. Now what is a granta? You look it up. A granta is a typical verse, like we just did in 34. This is a granta. It has 32 syllables. This is also a granta. It's Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You count the syllables, 32. So that's there. Now, when you get to the Bhagavatam, you get to the fifth canto, for instance. There's many verses. They're not really verses. There's prose, you see. There's a lot more. There's one number for the verse, but there could be, 250 syllables. It's long. It's a description of the planets and all these things, So you have to divide it, the syllables by 32, and then you'll get 18,000. But if you just count the numbers of the shlokas or verses, it comes up way short, because you have, especially 5th canto, but also 6th canto, even in the 4th canto, you have a few of those long prose passages where it's one number, but it can be, 5, 6, 8 gruntas. So just to let you know. So anyway, I think, the sages in Naimisharanya, or let's say Vyasadeva, when he was writing the Bhagavatam, said these Kali Yugites, as he describes in the beginning, they're always disturbed in mind, and they're not going to be able to, read 18,000 gruntas, because the Bhagavatam is vast, most of them. So I'm going to put the full, complete lesson in right there in the 2nd chapter. If they at least get through the 2nd chapter, or half of it, they'll get a complete lesson. So I'll just finish up here. So it goes on. There's about 20 verses in this whole thing. The last 5 verses are the basis of that little pamphlet, I think, of a lecture in that pamphlet called Reservoir of Pleasure, which we still hand out to this day by the thousands, And what it is it describes the result of one who's seriously been hearing and meditating through the hearing process and the development to perfection. So it's Shrinvatam, Swakata Krishna, Punya Shavana Kirtanaha, Ridyantaksto Yabadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Very nice verse. So Shrinvatam, Swakata Krishna. Krishna is the subject matter. When Krishna understands that a living entity is seriously hearing about him. Swakata means his own kata. Krishna is the subject, Krishna. Punya Shavana Kirtana. Those sound vibrations which bring piety, bhakti piety, not just material, by hearing and chanting. Punya Shavana Kirtana. by hearing and chanting. Just like we can experience ourselves, even if we don't know much philosophy at all. If we're going into a kirtan, nice kirtan, like that, that Ratha Yatra we finally had, where we could actually move and have a kirtan, is very blissful, So punya shravana, it brings piety just by engaging it. Then Ridyan Taksto, Krishna is situated in our heart. Ridyan Abhadrani Vidunoti. He cleanses away all the inauspicious things, the inauspicious desires, the misconceptions, the worries, the anxieties, all the different stuff. So he's cleaning. Chetadapada Marjana. That's the first verse. Vidunoti Suritsatam, because he is the best friend, the best well-wishing friend of all the satams, of the saintly devotees, you see. So Krishna is active in there. He's helping us. Then it goes on. I think then tadaradas tamo bhava kama lodha bhades cheta eta unabadam stitam sattva prasiditi. So then, when this good cleansing has taken place, not total, but it's very advanced, then the lower modes of nature stop bothering you. Tada rajas tamo bhava. The mode of passion and ignorance diminish more and more, and you become fixed in the mode of goodness. Kama cheta eta anavidam stitam sattve prasiditi. Become fixed in goodness, and you become more naturally joyful in heart. Prasiditi, you see. And then comes this verse that I couldn't remember, but now I remember. And then at that point, when the modes of nature, or you're not in the mode of nature, you're really fixed in goodness, and you're getting to pure goodness. Then, evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogavata. Thus, when one becomes clear, prasanna has two meanings. It means mind is very clear, and lucid, and joyful. You become natural joy of the soul is coming. Prasanna manaso by Bhagavad Bhakti Yogadaha, by engaging in Bhakti Yoga, the Bhagavan, Krishna. Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam. You get realized knowledge of Bhagavan in the heart and externally. He's enlightening you. Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangha Sajayate. This is what actually brought it. Mukta Sangha means you be freed of all the attachments that are tying you to this material world. Vijayate, you become victorious in that way. So Krishna is working from within and from without, through the sound, from within through the heart. And then comes the last verse in the series, which for many years the translation needed to be revised, and we did that. So this thing, Vidyate Hridaya Grantish Chidyante Sarva Sangshaya Chiyante Chasyakarmani Drishta Evatmanishware. So what does it mean? Vidyate means to cut. There's several cutting words in here. Hridaya Granti, the knots in the heart that have been binding us to this world for life after life after life, they're cut by Krishna because you're becoming more and more attached to Him. Vidyate Hridaya Grantis Chidyante Sarva Sangshaya. All of your doubts are destroyed. Chidyante also means to cut the pieces. Your doubts, because you're experiencing directly Krishna's presence within and without. Where's the doubt? There can't be doubt. And then Chiyante Chasyakarmani, all of your karma, is destroyed. There's no latent karmic reactions or anything. Chasyakarmani. And then Drishta Evatmanishware. Now this can mean different things. In the way Prabhupada translated it, was a puzzle to the first editor. He couldn't figure it out. So for years, in many of the books, and I think the change is made, and one sees the self as master. Self? Which self? My small s self? Because that was written as small s self. I'm the master? Because that master comes from the purport. The master is Krishna. He's the ultimate master, the controller. So it was and devotees are scratching their head, but it's the culmination. And so Atmani can mean different things. We can see it can mean within oneself. Or in this case, Prabhupada meant one sees oneself in one's real form. That, what is it called? One's actual being. I forget it. Siddha Sarup, I think it is Siddha Sarup. Sarup Siddhi. One actually sees one's original form as a gopi, as a a friend of Krishna's, as a blade of grass, but fully conscious, something, whatever it is. So you see that, Atmani, and Ishvara means God, or the complete control. So one sees God within oneself, and one sees one's own self in one's original form. Now, how did I figure this out? Because for years, if I had the book, I would show you. It was mysterious. One sees the self. So there's always, it must be the capital S self. It must be this, because that's the super soul. One sees the self as master. That makes sense, and we solved it that way. But that's not what Prabhupada meant, because the next words, not in the verse. That's the translation. The first sentence of the purport. He says, achieving direct knowledge of God. He's going back to the previous verse where it's called Vigyan. Vigyan is experienced knowledge. Jnana can be theoretical. You know all these things, but I haven't really realized that I'm not the body. I've seen this. But Vigyan means experienced knowledge. So when one gets Vigyan, Prabhupada says, more or less, that one sees oneself and Krishna and God. In other words, you see yourself, you see God in the heart, and you also see yourself as you really are in existence, your real identity. So that solved it, and that's the final line there. And that's full realization in this world, and then we go back to Godhead and we just leave the body like an old coat, and we're in our Siddha Sarup. Now, there's a little twist to this that you may not have heard. In various parts in the CC and also in the Krishna book, it describes that you don't go directly back to Goloka, but you go to that planet where Krishna, in this material world, where Krishna is enacting his pastimes. There's also that whole thing, when he finishes here, 5,000 years ago, he didn't go back to Goloka. Of course, he's there in Goloka in the original form. But he went to another planet in this universe and then took birth and like that. But it's a different variety. It's a little different than here. But anyway, that's where you go. So you're there with Krishna, growing up with him, as a gopi or as a cowherd boy or as a cow, whatever it may be. And then you go back, because you get trained. You get trained in your specific service in relation to Krishna. But Krishna's there, so it's blissful. So anyway, I'm not sure how we got into that, but it's all of this is part of that. What does it say here? We did 31. When it's sensible, it ceases to see different identities due to difference in material bodies. So this is the bodily concept of life. You're seeing the soul. You're seeing everybody as a servant of Krishna. He sees how beings are expanded everywhere. He attains the Brahman conception. All right, let's see if we can read one or two more verses. Anadit van nirgunat vat panamatma yamamvyayaha Sharirasto pikanteya nakaroti nalipyate. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. Purport. A living entity appears to be born because of the birth of the material body, but actually the living entity is eternal. He is not born, and in spite of his being situated in the material body, he is transcendental and eternal. Thus he cannot be destroyed. By nature he is full of bliss. He does not engage himself in any material activities. Therefore the activities performed due to his contact with material bodies do not entangle him. So, speaking of all the souls. So we speak in terms of how the soul is entangled in this material world due to the mistake of forgetting Krishna and identifying with the material body and the mind and like that, and that's entanglement. But in the ultimate sense, we're not really entangled. It's all a complete illusion. And that's really wonderful, because it means when we awaken to our real activity and our real understanding, then there can be a like a point of enlightenment, and you don't go back. You don't have to go back. If you're fixed and you have good association and determination, then it's like waking up from a long dream, which is also partly a nightmare sometimes. I mean, Krishna is so merciful, we don't have to remember, we can't remember what life was like in the womb. Not very comfortable, right? It's described in the third canto. And in fact, the living entity is so uncomfortable there. He's praying to God, this time, please, I'll worship you, But he comes out and his parents, they're karmis, and they're training him and he forgets. But if you're born into a devotee family, then as soon as you come out, everyone's chanting Hare Krishna, and there's the deities and the prasadam, So it's very, you can see how auspicious it is. So he's describing, a sensible man, one who is intelligent. Ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies. This is exactly what I was describing before. This disease of, the racism and the ethnicity and all based on the material body. But it's so pathetic. These millionaires and billionaires and everything, they're getting older every day, I mean, and the body is falling apart. They may have the best medical thing going on, but eventually they're, wow, and you can't take it with you. All of your money and your yachts and whatever else you have, So it's you can imagine. But when you're Krishna conscious, you take that with you. That's with you. You're with Krishna. Because it's consciousness. It's not something material. That's the big key element. All right, let's read one more. Anadvan nirgunatvad. No? That's 32. Oh, we do. Which one? 33, I'm sorry. Yata sarvagatam saukshmyad akasham nopalipyate sarvatra vastito dehe tatatmano palipyate. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. Purport. The air enters into water, mud, stool, and whatever else is there. Still, it does not mix with anything. Similarly, the living entity, even though situated in varieties of bodies, is aloof from them due to his subtle nature. Therefore, it is impossible to see with the material eyes how the living entity is in contact with this body and how he is out of it after the destruction of the body. No one in science can ascertain this. So this is encouraging, is that we're not really, we're closely associated with the body, but we're not really mixed with it. And when the body is finished, then we're not harmed at all. But in the material consciousness, then we're attracted to again go to a material body. But in the spiritual consciousness, we've already realized is our Siddha Swarup, and we're attracted to stay with Krishna. The whole point is that at that point we're thinking of Krishna at every moment. There's never a point of forgetfulness. And so we just, Krishna take you back home, back to Godhead, to where Krishna is appearing in this world, but it's as good as the spiritual world, because he's there. And we resume our long-forgotten relationship with Krishna, which doesn't have to end and doesn't degrade, simply moment-to-moment bliss. Okay, so we have a couple of minutes for some poems. So we just read 33, so we do 34 and 35 tomorrow, okay? And maybe even further. All right, so let's see. Okay. So you haven't heard this one in a while. This is a glorification of the holy name by Haridas Thakur. Who could give more glorification than that? So he chants a verse and he explains it in a conversation in the Anja Leela with Raghunath Das Goswami. He wasn't a Goswami then, but his father and uncle, and very holy gathering. And Haridas Thakur explained this, how the holy name brings liberation very easily. So the verse, I was very attracted to the verse when I first read it. Ang hak sang hadadakadang sakadadihade pasakalalo kasya Tadaniti Batamadading Jayajit the Mangalang Hare Nama. Sorry, sir, can you chant that from memory? You just heard it. You don't have a memory like that? He's getting it. So I integrated Haridas Thakur's verse and Haridas Thakur's explanation of it into a little poem. When the moon is invisible, now you have to go back 500 years, no electricity, no artificial, and of course there's fires you could build, but when the moon is invisible, it's very dark, and the sun is well below the horizon. So when the moon is invisible, withered to nil, and the sun is long gone from the sky, then an ocean of darkness envelops this world, and the timorous fear they might die. But that thick pall of gloom is at once swept away when the first signs of sunrise appear. And the dawning of day gives assurance to all that in truth there is nothing to fear. In a similar way, when illusion holds sway and a soul has forgotten his Lord, then the darkness of ignorance covers his heart. Sin and suffering are his reward. But as soon as he says Krishna's name even once, in a manner that doesn't offend, then his ignorance flees like the darkness at dawn, and his sin and his suffering end. So there's nothing to fear, for the sun of the name has appeared with his powers divine. In your heart may that sun, benedictive for all, become fixed and eternally shine. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Okay. So time for just one more. One minute. It'll be a short one, okay? Okay. This is an old favorite. You've heard it before. Ever fresh. Madoram, Madoram, Bapadasya Vibho, Madoram, Madoram, Vadanam, Madoram, and Madogam Dimadu Smita Metadoho. You know the last line. Madoram, 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 Madoram. Sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form. Sweet is still his face so fair, but his honey-scented gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. And on that auspicious note, thinking of Giridhari's sweet face, we'll adjourn. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari.